Hey, I'm back on my housing bullshit again, and as you can see from like a brief OBS share and like this title card, which I'm not even sure isn't cut off, in Google Docs, like I'm not really putting. I don't know how to edit things, right? I just don't want to type all this out. This is an issue I see a lot. About how people argue that we have enough vacant homes to meet our housing needs and therefore don't really need to build more homes. And that is not correct, and it's harmful when people say that. I want to get to why. I think there's two groups of people that say that. I think there's sort of contrarian edge lords that like I don't really give a shit about, and they're not reachable anyway. They're kind of all edge, no point. Pizza cutter is a fun term to use for them if you want to get under their skin. But whatever, that's only so productive. Point being, there's not a large point of it. They're not reachable. I don't spend my time worrying about that. Um, but I think there's a lot of people, and look, we all do this, myself included. Okay, we're all very good at finding reasons to justify our shit. I do it. You do it. You know, justifying. Not leaving a job or a relationship or whatever, or starting a new one, or justifying not taking a risk, like whatever. We can talk ourselves into things, right? Which is, I say it to say, this is not saying we're better or smarter than anyone else. I think a lot of people, good progressive people, whatever framing you want to use, can find a way to say, yeah, we probably need more homes, kind of, sort of, maybe. Yes, housing expensive, but like, my neighborhood's okay, and look, the real problem is that Wall Street is buying up all the homes and keeping it vacant, and that's the problem. It's cracked on that. We don't need to put a duplex near me, right? We'll get into some of that, right? And it doesn't make you a bad person, but it doesn't mean that that's not harmful when that happens, right? The best breakdown I've seen on this is from Daryl Owens, who wrote this back in 2021, I believe. Yes, vacant nuance in the vacant housing debate. It still holds up. This would be a very long video that wouldn't give you any more information than Daryl gives here. So just look, please read this. I'm just going through it real quick. It has all sources there. I'll link to it in the description. But the point being that there's a lot of different types of vacancies. There's the ones people think about, vacation homes, second homes, all that do exist, right? And like that's a thing. Separate issue on if it's a good idea. Like it's also just not going to be legal or a thing that will hold up in court to just seize people's homes and take them. So it's not really a real solution anyway. Even if it was, there's homes that are on the market. They are vacant and trying to be made not vacant. They are trying to be leased or bought or whatever. And there's just like a transition period there, right? There are ones where people are just moving. There, whatever. You get it here. There's list of people search for home at any moment. I love this section. It says think of all the reasons you might be looking for a home and why why your house might be vacant or why you might need to go to one that isn't. And this is the crux of it. What I want people to think about. Having the exact number of homes as the number of people looking for homes isn't good. And I don't think many people think that, but I think a lot of people think like, oh, 2% more, 3% more, whatever, low vacancy rate, 1% more. That's enough. It's really not. You have a ton of reasons people might need to look for a home. And look at it this way. If you're looking for a job, I think it's pretty self-evident that it is not advantageous for you if there's the exact number of people looking for jobs as job openings at the moment, let alone the geography issue. Like, are they in the same place? Say they're all in the same place. Doesn't meet your salary demands. Do you qualify for the job? God knows I don't qualify for all the jobs out there. I know you don't too if you're listening to this. Does it meet your, schedule needs? Is it the type of job you want to do? Will you have an abusive boss? Whatever, you get it. You need to aggregate the chances that that job works for you and supports your financial needs, right? Similarly, if you only have like 1 or 2% or extra quote unquote homes on top of the population of people, that's a problem. What are the chances that it's not too big, not too small, not too expensive, not too far away from your job, not too in disrepair and you don't have the skills or the money to fix it up? You get it. I could go on like this. You need to aggregate the chances that that home works for you. You might need to buy. You might need to rent. You might want a big home. You might want a small home. The more that are out there, the more flexibility you have and the more a chance you get to meet your needs. One can go too far. Like a 50% vacancy rate would be bad and lead to like disrepair issues. But like, look, you get it. I do briefly want to get into a side issue here that comes up a lot where people, a study a couple of years ago basically said that investors, quote unquote, are buying up 44% of homes. And people took that to mean that Wall Street is buying up 44% of homes, or BlackRock or Blackstone, and they use those interchangeably, even though they're different companies that do different things, but whatever. Um, and those are two very different things. So it can be argued, and I've seen, I mean, measuring this is always tricky, but it might well be the case that 44% of homes are owned by quote unquote investors. But that includes like basically all landlords, including like mom and pop landlords with like 1 to 5 units or whatever, right? Even like, and those people just don't have monopoly pricing power. If you own 3 homes, you're not keeping one off the market to drive up the price of the other two. You're just not doing that. You don't. The market won't care about that one extra home that's off the market. That's not how any of this works. Even if there's complexes in downtown Silver Spring where I live, which have like several hundred units, and like, does that company have leverage? Yeah, sure, but are they able to alone set the pricing power of, or even like, I know there's collusion issues and all that. I'm not saying that like doesn't happen at all, but the idea that they have enough power to sit back, hold some off, and raise the price, and that makes it more profit than they would just renting out the units that they do have, which are still a relatively small amount of the market. It doesn't make sense, right? And look, there's good and bad reasons to have big and small landlords. In my personal experience, and that as a renter, I own a condo now, but rented for a long time. And just as a housing advocate, working with, we're not working with, volunteering with tenants sometimes, like mom and pop landlords tend to be either like really great or really terrible. And corporate landlords tend to be like predictably kind of shitty. And like, I think it's a preference point on which one you want to deal with. But yeah, that's Wall Street is not the problem here. You can absolutely have a reasonable cap on the amount, and I'll get that into a second, that they can own in a given area. I think even vacancy taxes, they can be fine. I just, much like, people say, oh, just tax vacancies and that'll get all the housing we need, or just convert office buildings. So that's a whole separate rant. I've written an article on that. Like, office conversions are expensive and don't always work out. But vacancy arguments and office conversion arguments are a good way for people to say, oh, I don't need to allow a duplex near me or a condo or a apartment. Just convert that office building down the street, or just tax the vacant homes and we'll get all the housing we need. And that is a fairy tale. That is a fairy tale that people tell themselves to not feel bad. And I am a lapsed Catholic. I know of what I speak, all right? Like, we all do it. You do it, I do it. But it's still harmful. There are some markets. This is a Brookings, I think it's like a commentary. I don't think it's a formal paper. But this is the title, Ripple Effects of Fanning Institutional Purchase of Single-Family Rentals. Get into this a little bit, but like, there are some markets, like parts of the Atlanta market, parts of the Phoenix market. I want to say Tampa's another one. They get into it here. Whatever, read it. I'll link to it. There are areas where there are large investors that may own enough that they may have some leverage that's unhelpful there, right? And like, we can deal with that. That's a legitimate antitrust issue. Again, you can have a cap, you can have a vacancy tax, whatever. But I often hear people talk about banning institutional investors, and like, that can real fast become, don't allow people to rent out single family homes. And that is, frankly, a classist and exclusionary outcome. Single family neighborhoods are expensive to begin with. If you make it so that you can't rent it out at all, which people do in your neighborhood, I promise you, and make it so they have to buy the home, and now they need a 6-figure down payment to get in there, which just is what it costs around me to get in the market. That's bad. Don't do that. That's it. Thanks if you listen this much. All right.